that the mountains might flow down at thy presence, as when the melting fire burneth the fire, cause the waters to boil, to make thy name known to thine adversaries, that the nations may tremble at thy presence, when thou didst terrible things which they look not for. Thou camest down the mountains, flow down at thy presence. For since the beginning of the world, men have not heard nor perceived by the ear, neither hath the eye seen, O God, beside thee, what he hath prepared for him that waiteth for him. Thou meetest him that rejoiceth and worketh righteousness.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. Continuing today in the book of Proverbs, picking it up in chapter 11 here, verse 12. Unlike a lot of other places, we're not going to read the whole chapter again from the beginning, but we'll start here at verse 12. Mostly because most of the Proverbs stand on their own, even as a single verse, as an axiomatic sort of kind of truth. A wisdom. Because wisdom is flexible. It's not always a single-minded thing. Anyways, let's read it. And the very first one is a good example of that, and we'll talk about it in just a moment. Proverbs 11:12. He that is void of wisdom despiseth his neighbor, but a man of understanding holdeth his peace. A talebearer revealeth secrets, but he that is of a faithful spirit concealeth the matter. Where no counsel is, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors there is safety. He that is surety for a stranger shall smart for it, and he that hateth suretyship is sure. A gracious woman retaineth honor, and strong men retain riches. The merciful man doeth good to his own soul, but he that is cruel troubleth his own flesh. The wicked worketh a deceitful work, but to him that soweth righteousness shall be a sure reward. As righteousness tendeth to life, so he that pursueth evil pursueth it to his own death. They that are of a froward heart are abomination to the Lord, but such as are upright in their way are his delight. Though hand join in hand, the wicked shall not be unpunished, but the seed of the righteous shall be delivered. As a jewel of gold in a swine's snout, so is a fair woman which is without discretion. The desire of the righteous is only good, but the expectation of the wicked is wrath. There is that scattereth, and yet increaseth, and there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty. Hold on, maybe I want to read that again because I don't think I read it well. I think you should, because my understanding was not particularly fruitful to me. There is that scattereth and yet increaseth, and there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty. The liberal soul shall be made fat, and he that watereth shall be watered also himself. He that withholdeth corn, the people shall curse him, but blessing shall be upon the head of him that selleth it. He that diligently seeketh good procureth favor, but he that seeketh mischief, it shall come to him. He that trusteth in his riches shall fall, but the righteous shall flourish as a branch. He that troubleth his own house shall inherit the wind, and the fool shall be a servant to the wise of heart, and the fool shall be servant to the wise of heart. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he that winneth souls is wise. Behold, the righteous shall be recompensed in the earth, much more the wicked and the sinner. Okay. Well, these are great. Very interesting. Ooh, wait a minute. So he that is void of wisdom despiseth his neighbor, but a man of understanding holdeth his peace. There, sometimes I'll talk about things contradicting each other, and I mean seemingly, because I don't think ultimately. I do think there are. There are things there are contradictory ideas, like in the book of Ecclesiastes, for example. There's a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. Those are two opposite ideas, and so sometimes the scripture presents us with opposite ideas, which you could think of as a contradiction because they say the opposite thing. And people get all uptight about it if I use the word contradictions. Like, the Bible doesn't have any contradictions. It discusses many contradictions. It has to discuss contradictions. And so in the process of discussing contradictions, taking things out of context, you can say that it contradicts itself. Depending on how you're applying things. And wisdom has to be used to understand, so we can interpret things properly. So the scripture that immediately jumps to my mind in, let's say, contradiction to this, it says something a bit different, depending on how you interpret it, of course, Again, it can be misinterpretation, but sometimes it's a question of not misinterpretation, of you need an interpretation that encompasses everything. So I'm bringing up that scripture right now. Okay. For example, because you might think like, okay, you look at this and you say, okay, if I'm void of wisdom, I despise my neighbor. So I'm not. It's wise. So for what's also saying is like, it's not wise. The lag is driving me nuts a little bit, but it's not wise to despise your neighbor, right? The wise thing, and I want to look at that word despise, because that may be an important. Okay, that's not bad. It was really the. I was seeing myself move a moment afterwards, and it was a little bit. Do I have any other applications running? No. Anything dying in the background? I guess there are things that want to update. Okay. But let's see. The balance of verse 12. Despiseth. Okay, there we go. Booze to despise. I don't think we're getting anything special out of this. To despise, what's the root meaning? Oh, it's a primitive root. This is the root to despise. It just doesn't have any other meaning. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not there with you. Sorry. Oh, I had that up. Well, I mean to show you this. Of this. There we go. That's the word for despise, which I now found out doesn't mean much, but it means despise. I don't think they even translate it differently, no matter how. Look at it on the right-hand side. You see all the ways it's used in the New Englishman's Concordance, the New American Standard, the King James, the INT, which is the Biblios Interlinear Bible. They all chose to use despise. And contemn, despise, and so it doesn't specify, is what I'm saying. So despise. So again, meaning you want to be wise, and being unwise can lead to despising your neighbor. And it says, so in light of that, what does the responding verse say? It says, so I'm bringing it up at the same time looking at, but a man of understanding holds his peace. Keep quiet. Now, there's a verse I refer to a lot that is also very pertinent to this question. Wrong screen. Browsing, collection. There we go. All right, we have that. Leviticus 19:18. 19:17. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart. A form of, you could say that's something comparable to. So this is about also like to despise your neighbor in a sense, right? Or it says brother, but it also says neighbor. It's the same thing here. Jesus promoted neighbor to be basically everyone who needs your goodwill, your kindness. Anyone who needs you is, who was neighbor to this man who was on the road? Even if that's the person that hates you. You will not hate your brother in your heart. You shall in any wise rebuke your neighbor and not suffer sin. So if you see him sin a sin, you got to rebuke him. Don't hold your peace. And actually, it's not really contradictory at all. But it says, on one hand, the other one says, what I mean is, one might get the wrong idea from the proverb if you don't understand what it means to love your neighbor. That it might involve something like telling them that they're doing wrong. In some, like I said, Sometimes people see people destroying themselves, and because they want that person who's destroying themselves to continue to love them, and they want to, they don't want to offend that loved one. So as they destroy themselves, they do not tell them you shouldn't do this even. They don't give them any rebuke at all. They hold their peace. Because I wouldn't want to upset them and get them mad at me and lose their love and their affection, right? And so I'm just going to be pleasing to them. But in some ways, I'm letting them destroy themselves because I don't have the courage to tell them something that they may not want to hear. And that's not really what love looks like. I understand it's not necessarily, like you don't necessarily just go up to a stranger. I've talked about this, the idea of casting your pearls before swine comes into it too. But like I said, when Jesus said, don't cast your pearls before swine, you understand that's a sense, if you consider your neighbor a swine, that's a form of despising them. You know what I mean? And so it's not wise to despise your neighbor. And that's true. Sometimes, though, when people identify themselves as meaning like they are manifesting certain behaviors, like when Jesus rebuked the scribes and Pharisees, and also, and he did not feel that he owed them explanations of his teachings on a certain level. He taught openly. But he also expounded all things in private to his disciples. And he did not, there are a lot of things, I've gone over this before, that Jesus could have done that would have all made them believe, but he wasn't in the business of making people believe. It had to be given of the Father. That's why he said to Peter, flesh and blood has not revealed this unto you, Peter, but my Father which is in heaven. So yeah, there's a long tradition that you have to, but okay, so wait a second. But it said you rebuke your neighbor, right? How is it? That's what I'm saying. Here's the contradiction, right? There is a contradiction. In a sense, there's a truth in the one hand. Well, you shall not despise your neighbor. Of course not. That's wrong. And so how do you not despise your neighbor? Well, you rebuke him. Well, the Proverbs says you hold your peace. So what does that mean? What's the difference there? Well, I'll tell you what. When you see someone sin a sin and something to their destruction, you should warn, rebuke. Yes. You don't have to, goes out of your way as the Lord leads you. Just like the Good Samaritan. We're called to be who is neighbor to the man. It was the one that had mercy. He was the one, Jesus went and said, be a neighbor to people. Who is my neighbor? And in that parable, the Good Samaritan, remember, the Samaritan is helping out a Jew, and the Jews hated the Samaritans, spit on the Samaritans. Not all Jews or whatever, but that was the general feeling, was animosity. Anyway, so Jesus called us to be good neighbors. And so what I say to this is, sometimes people, sometimes what happens is, what holds this peace in what sense? Well, I think it's leading in. I say they're not connected entirely, not entirely, but they're put in a certain order, and I do think there is some revealed wisdom as you go on. So it's like, holds his peace in what sense? Well, how might you despise your neighbor other than in rebuking him? What ways might there be that you should not open your mouth in regards to your neighbor? Well, in spreading rumors about your neighbor, in unjust criticism about your neighbor, things, talking to other people about your neighbor, stuff that you ought to talk to them. If you got a problem with your neighbor, you're supposed to go talk to your neighbor about it, not go talk to 50 other people about it and try to get them all to hate your neighbor, and you never even said a word. That's not the godly way. Not at all. So yeah, there's a time to hold your peace. There's subject matter over which you need to speak up. But that first of all goes to your neighbor. Again, the talebearer is next. So there could be a connection in that. But that doesn't mean that verse 12 doesn't just stand on its own as a piece of wisdom. But again, like all wisdom, it has to be applied, and you have to consider the law. Like I said, that there's a whole rebuke your neighbor. That's one way you don't hate him. You hate your neighbor by letting him drink himself to death. You know? It's none of my business. And so this is not a thing to say like, well, I don't want to rebuke my neighbor. That might make them not like me. And they might think I don't like them if I say something, if I criticize what they're doing. I don't want to say anything. See, and you could talk yourself into like, oh, I like my neighbor, so I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to just be, oh, wonderful. I'm going to celebrate your stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I'm actually going to be a good, that gets into that sort of thing where by celebrating sin as they do these days, they despise their neighbor because they think they're doing them good. But we love them. We'll celebrate with them. We'll join with them and wave their flags. And just, and then and I can say like, well, I don't want to speak against that. I mean, even just being neutral. Because this is even talking about, you could talk yourself into neutrality and not speaking up against sin. And that's why you need to use wisdom properly, because proper wisdom fears God first and not men. And that's where you get into trouble. You start fearing men instead of God. When you start acting, because that's what lies are all about. When you lie to men, it's because you fear them more than God. And you need to deceive them in some way. I mean, like I said, there's points in which you serve God. Like Jesus doesn't have to tell his enemies when they're looking for him where he is. We don't owe them we don't owe them that kind of information. They don't get who the heck do they think they are? The Lord is overall. I'm his servant, so I know that I answer to him, and it's a lot worse than man can do. I tell you, to answer to the Lord. But I have no fear, because perfect love casts out fear, and the perfect love of Christ manifest on the cross, should make us all trust. It's like, you don't believe God loves you, and then I don't know what to tell you. A talebearer revealeth secrets, but he that is a faithful spirit concealeth the matter. Again, this must be, you apply wisdom to wisdom. Yes, you should, a talebearer. It's not like, well, do you know where the body is? Well, I heard that it's buried out in the field, or, something like that. There are things which you must report. You know what I mean? Like I study this, because I coach kids sports, and I have to go through training every year to recognize, be able to recognize predatory behaviors and stuff, and also guard against hazing and stuff like that. Whatever. It's like we have a pretty, what's the opposite of toxic? A nourishing coaching environment where I coach. It's very much a support the kids and type of stuff. It's not a toxic, that kind of stuff. We don't do hazing and stuff. It's kids wrestling. So, but I still have to go through all this training that goes into, I can see as you get into high school and stuff, it becoming a real problem. People wanting access to kids and stuff. I do it because I had kids. I just wanted to be there with my kids, make sure other people didn't have access to my kids. In part, not that there were any people I was worried about. But you like to be around, right? You like to watch. I do. I like to keep watch. I always respect parents who sit around or have one there. But anyways, so there are there's nothing secret that shall not be revealed. Jesus, something that Jesus said. Okay, so don't, this is not a blanket over secrets. It's certain kinds of secrets. It's malevolent. No. Well, malevolent secrets that are of an important nature where it needs to come out, like so-and-so is hurting someone in private, things like that. But there are other things that are private and should be kept private, or that are false. Meaning they're carrying tales around about people that may not even be true, but like, oh, listen to the secrets. Listen to these, because everyone loves to hear, because a lot of times people don't even care if it's true or not. You know, they just want to hear something salacious and they want to believe it. That's why to this day, I mean, you can see it on both sides of the political spectrum that people on one side are very willing to believe, no matter how absurd a story is. On one side, if it's on the opposite side, they believe it. If it, meaning maybe like some of the contents of the Russian dossier matter, in regards to videotapes that may have existed of very I would say out of character sexual behaviors and stuff like that. Like I said, it doesn't make sense to me. I would expect something pretty much reverse it. With that person seems like the type of person who would be more interested in degrading other people than being degraded themselves. So, and again, there are different types. I don't understand a lot of things in this world, and who can. But there were people who were very willing to believe that, just ready to believe it. Just like, and then on the other side, there was that whole controversy with the hot dogs and the Pizza Gate or whatever, right? And that was all. I knew that was just way too weird to be true. I mean, I know such things go on, but sometimes there are things that the rumors get put around that are so ridiculous in a way to cover up things that are actually going on. So they put on some wild thing, and then everyone goes there and is like, oh, it's nothing. So then now that any stories along that line can be categorized as being false or somehow misleading, or being, such things never happen. Children are never trafficked. No, they are. That's what I mean about dark secrets. There are dark secrets that need to be come out and investigated. Where did they put the murdered body? Where, what is, there are things like that. But the lies that the talebearer takes, to slander people's reputation, and again, the revealing of, I wonder if there's anything subtle in here. Because like I said, I do greet it with a bit of skepticism, I guess, in the way I'm interpreting it, don't I? Because I'm like, yeah, well, the talebearer, he thinks he reveals secrets, but he reveals lies, is what I say. Because, I mean, if it's a true accusation, like if like a man has done a murder, for example, secretly, and then someone discovers like that they had done it or whatever, or someone just knows about it because they actually were witness to it, but not an unknown witness to it. I mean, they saw it from like reasonable distance or whatever, something like that. Where that, would you say, oh well, talebearer? When someone gives witness to a crime, it's not a talebearer, okay? I'll tell you what, though, if you're not going to the authorities, you might be a talebearer in witness to a crime. Like obviously, because it's one of the things I got tested on. It's like you see none of this stuff happens in my level. Kids don't have phones and stuff, but it was like, a coach asked someone for them to send them a picture, an explicit or nude picture or something like that. What do? Talk to them? And it's like, just call the authorities. Yeah, I knew most of the answer to a lot of the questions was call the authorities. Like that's the responsibility I have. But the people who, and that's not talebearing. That's just you giving over to actual investigators who find out the truth of things. If it's just lies, they'll find it out, And sometimes you have to trust that, because I haven't been put in a position to be arbitrator of these things. I'm not the justice. I want to trust in, I do. As far as it goes, I trust certainly my local law enforcement. I'm a little bit skeptical of our national law enforcement. I think they're getting a little bit out of line, and certainly other localities where they've had these lawless prosecutors installed. It's very troubling. I would not want to travel to those localities. You know what I mean? So the righteousness of the, well, where are we? I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. So He that is of a faithful spirit concealeth the matter. So what am I saying? There are some secrets that should be kept, I guess. There are some secrets that should be kept. The thing is, we've been called as Christians, this proverb is again, a talebearer, a gossip. Let's see what the word is exactly. I think I did want to look at that. Talebearer, halak, to go, come, or walk. Yeah, uncover. Yeah, the word secrets is not necessarily secrets. Okay, I should have checked that right away. Oh, I have an itch on my leg for some reason. Probably because I had a shower and a haircut this morning, and an itch on my. I think it's actually just dry skin down there or something. I don't know what's on my knee. To despise. Okay, that one we did. Halak. To go, come, walk. This is the word that's actually translated. Sometimes vagabond. I noticed that up there. Oh, I'm not over there with you. Sorry. Not that one. Browse internet. There we go. You see here? Oops. Here. Well, vagabond, vanish. These are all the ways this is translated. Look how many different ways this word got translated. It means to go, come, or walk. And it's translated like the word let's see, 55 times departed. 82 come. So this is obviously like he that cometh and goeth or something like that, to go, come, or walk. And again, it's like a lot of words, I think, in a sense, of persons, distinguished from riding, compare also running. Less often. Where does it come down to? Well, I don't know. Look at all that stuff, man. That's after a while, I was just like, look at all that. Look at all that info on the left-hand side. That's all the lexical information, like the lexicon of like the ways this word gets used. It's such a basic word. So in some, like I say, like the word welcome, it's got come in there, just like we have the word come, to come. And, but how the way we use that and a combination of well and come, it's not obvious how that gets to the meaning. Like, thou art welcome, my friend. I mean, I get it, but we don't use it that way anymore. And same thing with like this. It somehow means a talebearer, one who comes and goes, basically. And I can't even find the place here. I'm not patient enough to look for it right now in the middle of the time. Still going. Look how long that goes on. That's a long time. Forms and transliterations, okay? Those are all the forms. Hebrew, this is why I did not get far in my personal, like I had a book on it's somewhere up there still, how to learn Hebrew, Got through the alphabet. Akin to Yalak, a primitive root. I like better, just to know how to use these tools is pretty decent. You can help yourself a lot, that's the main thing. To walk in a great variety of applications, literally and figuratively. That's why I like the way Strong says. And these are all the ways, including somewhere down there we have, where's the talebearer? Talebearer, yeah. So, he that comes and goes reveals what? Secrets, counsel. And so that makes more sense. Now I can sort of, I'm glad this is more important. Counsel and counsel. Because you have a counsel to take counsel, right? A counsel is a bunch of people sitting around and they talk together, taking counsel about what they should do. The words are related, in other words, meaning as a noun it means counsel, and as a verb it means counsel. Or it can mean both, I guess, whatever, because it could be a noun in either case. But anyways, so there you go. You imagine you're taking counsel together. It's like a proverb. I knew this before. I don't know why it took so long to get to loose lips sink ships, because that's the kind of basic idea here, is that sometimes there's private counsel, like business, like we're going to go do this. Let's say we have an idea. So you have a great idea for something, a new business idea or something like that, and you tell a friend, you say, hey, keep quiet. I'm going to do this. This is going to be a great idea. And then they go and they take your idea and they go and tell someone else who then does it and takes advantage of the fact that you are maybe not acting on it as quickly as you thought you would because you felt like it was kept secret. And so there's a good example of the negative. Obviously, things that should be kept secret, and the positive. I mean, a friend who but this is why you shouldn't give important information to untrustworthy people. Loose lips sink ships. Your loose lips might sink ships. Why are you entrusting secrets with people without understanding clearly that they're trustworthy? So I would say also, he that revealeth his counsel to a talebearer is a fool. Okay? As far as especially if you know them to be a talebearer. In fact, there are people who I know to be talebearers, they can be useful in a certain way because you can feed them information. There you go. That's the truth. That's a wisdom that maybe, if used in the fear of God, it can be wise. All the wisdom in the world without the fear of God can quickly becomes corrupted into self-serving, self-promoting, and self-exaltation is really where it goes. Because you use that, because what else are you going to use it for? If you don't understand that you have God to fear, why not use all your craft and wisdom to get everything you can for yourself? And also to protect yourself. And, to do like I said, literally everything you can for yourself. I mean, you can make arguments about why you might do stuff for other people, to a limited extent, yes. Because, you don't want to be out there just solo against the world like as an enemy. You have to get people to work with and for you. But that's just a matter of being really kind to some people and really terrible to others. That's often how it goes. How do you think nobility works? So that's good. I should have gone right to the Hebrew there. I'm sorry that took so long. But again, but I do think there's a truth that I understand. It's like there's things secret that have to be revealed. Okay. He that has a faithful spirit concealeth the matter, obviously. A faithful spirit, anything special about faithful? As far as in the Hebrew, I want to just check it. Faithful spirit. Faithful is separate from spirit. Aman, to confirm, supporting. It's translated often, believe, believed, faithful, established, assurance, assured. Not quite the same as the Greek pistis, or pistue, or whatever. The word that's for faith in Greek, not the same, but similar. Where no counsel is, the people fall. But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Again, often there is a verse I think we will come to later. I'm pretty sure it exists, where a sentiment close to the opposite is indicated, where too much counsel is sort of also a problem. Like, yes, the multitude of counselors, having a lot of different counselors. This is a good place to make a promoting of the idea of diversity of opinion, or of having people of different perspectives talking about things. This is one of the reasons it annoys me so much. Like, even I had a video taken down. I'm gonna go find. I found part of the offending material. I'm gonna censor it. And it's gonna say, I'm gonna put who censored it, because it's the CDC censoring my Bible studies, and someone must be scouring them or something. Like, there's literally someone actually listening to me for the purposes. I think so, because how else could they go to a study that's 3 years old? Like, the AI picked up on a different one, and I think someone has to manually look at them or something, because it's like, why it's suddenly out of the blue one is picked out. I think I've said a lot more than that, but there was something about, I basically repeated a rumor. I'm not going to say what it is here because it doesn't matter. I think it's obscene that we cannot even talk. I'm not a reputable news source. I'm just some dude on a camera talking about things, and I might repeat rumors. They're so fearful that the 20 or 30 people listening to me might have they're so, we can't let them hear these things about our precious substances we want to jack into their bodies. Anyways, but one of my problems with that is, like, when you censor dissent, even if people have garbage opinions, you multitude of counselors, there's safety. You need to hear different voices. There's not a good idea to at the outset decide what the right course is and then shut everybody up who doesn't agree with the person who happens to be an authority. That's not how things work in America, but it's how they want it to work now. As far as it's how they're making it work online. It's how this platform works. And it seems absurd. And this is a Bible study. Like it really, like people are going to take, they're like, you're not smart enough to understand that when I'm talking about rumors about things that go on, that's not me making a statement about anything medical or more or less any kind of decree. No, so certainly I have decreed. I become a conscientious objector against all these vaccines on religious grounds. I feel like God is in it. Whereas before I took the attitude they can take up poison and drink it and no harm shall come to them. But now I feel like the Lord has opened my eyes and said, no more. Do not cooperate with these things. Especially because now when I send my kids to school, it's mandated at school. Well, no, I won't take none. No. Because I do believe that's what the Lord wants. So, that's not misinformation. That's religion. And all what I do is religion. And it's annoying to me that, like I said, that they would, that they'd shut people up. When that's safety. It's dangerous to censor people. It's dangerous to censor dissent. Because that prevents you from, like the Galileo, Copernicus, they had dissenting opinions. It's always those who hate dissent who want to crush it. They hated Jesus because he dissented about the way they did their temple stuff. You made it a den of thieves. I don't like your divorce ideas. Your idea about Korban is garbage. You ought to have done mercy and faith and judgment. These ought you have done and not to leave the other undone. You tithe the mint and the anise and the cumin. You bind heavy burdens and make men carry them, but you don't lift them with even one of your fingers. He had a critique of them they didn't appreciate. A difference of opinion. And that is essential. When you kill people, and what happened to them after they killed him? Well, that's been the last 2,000 years of history, not quite, of them being the diaspora. Cast out of their land. Temple destroyed, burned to the ground, just like Jesus said it would be. There should not be one. See all these great buildings? There's the platform is still there, but whatever buildings there were there, other than, I remember Arnold Murray said, see, they still got the Western Wall. I'm like, I don't know. That's just a piece of the city. That's not particularly I don't think they were looking at that thing, at the platform, and being like, look at the platform. They were looking at the temple and the buildings and stuff. Like when you consider where that lower wall is, the Western Wall in relation to where the temple is, it's like they weren't looking at the Western Wall. Mount of Olives, right? Isn't that close to the west? Is it the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall? I think so. Well, in any case, I don't think the platform was really what they had in mind. And even so, I suppose you could argue, and I always have, that, yes, someday the job will be finished. And everything that was built there before will be all overthrown. And a new Jerusalem will be built there. And Christ himself will sit on the throne there. I believe that. Where no counsel is, the people fall. But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Yeah. And that's what's happened. The people have fallen. Because they weren't allowed to hear multitude of counselors. Now we have a unified message. Did you ever see that video where they showed all those different newscasters from all those channels and all those different, where they started talking about the dangerous trend of misinformation, and they were all delivering the exact same message. It was like 50 different outlets, and they showed them all like at the same time saying the same thing. Same script. Identical. You're not supposed to notice. There is no multitude of counselors. We are in a dangerous position. We have no multitude of counselors. We have one counsel. Go to war. By any means. Do whatever it takes. We're bound. We're being dragged with a hook in our jaw towards war. It's like, good luck stopping. It's like, I'll dig my heels in with every bit of my might, but good luck, as I think, as meet as I ought to. But we are going down to our destruction, and we are going to charge into it like fools. Oh boy, because we have no counselors, none. We only have one council, the Council of Fools. We have the Council of Fools, a bunch of fools sitting around taking foolish counsel together and stuffing their pockets with the proceeds because they fear not God and they have not that wisdom. We have a godless government. Not that but the point is, I don't think the government itself is, but the individuals in it must be God-fearing, or there's no freedom, especially when you have something so big. I just mean God-fearing. I don't mean they have to be religiously weird. They gotta think that like there's a judgment and I gotta be honestly account for it. I don't mean just someone who's just like, I'm a religious zealot, so I get to do whatever I want. Some people, I like that, I guess. Some people think when I talk about being religious, they have stereotypes in their minds. God-fearing. Oh, scary. Because in pop culture, they do portray us as scary people. I do think so. Well, I do think I'm scary. I'm more dangerous. Because I have the word of God. How should one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000? If I can chase 1,000, 10,000 can fall at my side and it not come near me. If need be, Also, I'm ready to lay down my life. I mean, I'm not exceedingly ready. I'm not anxious about that. Anxious for it. I'm not anxious for it. I'm not interested in hasting that about. But, like I said, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. I certainly have always said so to the Lord and never denied. I've never begged my life. Except, I expect to lay it down at some point. And like a whirlwind, the moment will pass. And again, the Lord will greet us in the kingdom to come. He that is surety for a stranger shall smart for it. And he that hateth suretyship is sure. When I think about suretyship, it makes you think of like insurance. Because I have the word sure, right? Insurance. And the idea is being sure for a stranger is what? You are telling, like, I'm going to back this person up. They will pay you back. I'm going to be sure for them. They're going to take these grains and they'll be back with the money or something. I'll vouch for them. It's the basic concept or whatever, right? To be sure for someone. And if I let's look up the Hebrew, but I'm not positive we're going to get a lot of extra meaning out of it because it's going to be a word that has meaning. I don't know. We'll see. What do I mean by that? Verse 15, surety. To take on pledge, to give in pledge or exchange. And again, to pledge for someone else. Again, sometimes you make a pledge for someone and I compare it to co-signing for a car. But it is a lot like insurance. You're insuring someone's going to fulfill their obligation. I mean, just like if you get in a car accident, your insurance ensures you're able to fulfill the obligation of your liability for that accident to whatever point you're insured. You know what I mean? And so, there is a hazard in that. Obviously, these companies they've calculated the dangers and the hazards, and there's all kinds of stuff that goes into that. I have no doubt. But there used to be a more informal kind of thing where people would just, I remember I had someone once come up to me in a parking lot, a younger woman with another woman, and they seemed sketchy to me, because she was like quick talking and she's, blah, 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 blah. I remember she said something like she was selling something or wanted to sell something or wanted to convince someone. She said, if I da-da-da, will you back me up? And I got the impression she wanted me to like help her, like say, yeah, I did. And to someone, or I didn't understand. I was like, no. And then she was like, worth a shot. And she wandered off to talk to somebody else. I almost thought about, I was like wondering to myself, should I let Walmart know there's some sort of, what would you call it? Scam artist in the parking lot trying to pull something? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what was wrong with my screen there. Oh, I see. So to take on pledge, to give in pledge. To pledge someone else's faithfulness to some sort of covenant. It's always a sketchy business when you don't know the person, obviously. When someone's, not known to you. A foreigner is also a stand-in for someone who's like not known to you, obviously, because they are strange. I mean, not in the sense of weird, but in the sense of there's many unknowns. Let's see. I was gonna look up stranger real quick here. Just make sure it's gonna be. I thought I knew it. I mean, let's just see what it says. And what's smart mean? Huh. Okay, it's a little weird. I'm going to go back to that. I was just looking at all these words. So, as it says in the second part of it, it says, he that is surety for a stranger. Now, that is Arab, to take on pledge. And then the stranger is Azur, which is another, someone other, someone, again, implying unknown. Let me get rid of buzz, tailbearer, counsel. That's the word for confirm, support, trust, aman, right? I think that is also, let's see. Nope, that's different. And that's different. And that's different. Okay, so this got kind of weird. So we have, there's Zur, to be a stranger. Comes from a primitive root, to turn aside, especially for lodging. Yeah, I remember this one. Especially to be a foreigner. It's someone who's not from around here, May not necessarily, like I said, may not necessarily be, like I said, like the strange woman was similarly not necessarily, like I said, this is here profane. And also can even mean to commit adultery. Again, like we have the strange woman. This is the same word that gets used for that. It has the idea from turning aside, implying foreigners, but also in the sense someone who has turned aside from the truth and become sort of a foreigner in their own land. And also, it could be a countryman who you don't know. Don't assume just like, oh, well, you're my brother. So when it says, he that giveth surety to a stranger shall smart for it, and I should probably move back the mic because it was not that loud before. It here says the word smart. Now, it probably does have it is ruah. Now, that sounds a lot like ruach, which is like the word for spirit, but there is ruah, which means to raise a shout or give a blast. And like with a horn or raise a shout. And I think what it means is like he's gonna he's gonna smart. I think they got the right idea in the King James. And I think that's right. It rings true, and it means here a shout of triumph or a shout for joy. But what about, let me see, where's the other? Hippophel, Povel, Shard and Harvest, to cry out in distress. There we go. This is probably the one. Proverbs 11:15. Right. So in cry out in distress in Isaiah 15. I'm not going to go there. And also Micah 4:9. Zion under a figure of woman, but also read, where out thou broken all to pieces, as Proverbs 11:15, to cry out in distress. So again, it does mean to raise a shout. Now what's interesting is the last word. No, wait. He that hateth ruah. So then, he that hateth is to hate. Okay, and then suretyship is this word, which is not the word before, which was to give in pledge, and in fact doesn't even appear to be related to. Yeah, thrust. Oh, I had it open before. That's that. Doesn't appear to have any relation to it either, which I find interesting. Yeah, ruah, to give a blast. And this is another kind of taka, a different kind of blast. So, even though they seem to be the same word, and I think what it says is, instead of, they don't have it wrong here, and this is batak, it means to trust. It's a different word than we had for sure. Not suretyship, but for the other one. Faithful. Faithful is different, right? That was confirming in a different sense. keep things covered. But where no counsel is, the people fall, but the multitude of counsel, we did that, I'm sorry. Surety for a stranger shall smart, that's ruah, give out a cry, right, of distress. And he that hateth, again, to thrust, clap, giving a blow or bless, he that hates shouting out, perhaps, maybe, is trusty. And I think what it's saying, and they say suretyship, because I think what they're saying is, they think that this idea, even though it's a different word for blast, it's what they're saying is the blast is put for the thing that causes you to do it. Meaning, you cry out in distress. I wish it was the same word because that would make more sense. But they used a different word, and that's probably for the sake of, because you don't always like to use the exact same word when you're trying to be poetic and you're making a proverb. So they may mean the same concept. So if you don't want to smart, if you hate smarting, you're going to be sure. Meaning they put the smarting, the thing you're going to say ouch over, they put the idea of saying ouch in place of the thing which causes you to ouch. So, and that's what they've done here in the King James. They said suretyship. He that hates suretyship is sure, is trusty, or is, the word means to trust. Batach. Yeah, that's the right one too. Batach. Primitive to trust. In fact, it's used trusting in the sense of careless and complacent, confident. Yeah, woe to you women that are at ease. Is that in here? Nope, not. Is it in here? Is there ease in here? No. But you careless women, actually, there's another one. I'm going to close all those down. So there we go. So it's fine the way it's translated, really, but it's interesting how they got there. Because it's not quite, I could have just gone over that without looking at it, but I'm looking at it definitely open my understanding a bit, like to understand, well, that's not exactly saying, they've translated it right here, but no, they haven't what I would say is they've, interpreted it right here. The interpretation, because it's more of an interpretation than a strict translation, and sometimes that's necessary because it may not make sense in English, A gracious woman retaineth honor, and strong men retain riches. On the feminine side, it's like graciousness. What is graciousness indicating? Let's see what the word. Chen, which we've looked at before. It means favor or grace. I believe we looked at it before. Sometime I'm sure we have. I'm not sure when. Maybe not in the book of Proverbs. Or maybe we did. It's translated sometimes adornment, charm, charming, favor, grace, graceful, gracious. From chanan, graciousness, that is subjective kindness or favor, or objective beauty. So it has, just like we talk about grace in both the sense of it's mercy, but it's also beauty. And that's interesting. And that concepts, those concepts are intertwined in their language and in ours, which I think is, it's probably because of the common human experience in many languages, I bet the idea of grace and favor, and also that sense of gracefulness and beauty are also, because what is more beautiful than mercy? Mercy is one of the most beautiful things in the world. When someone shows mercy, that's why God loves mercy. He does, because he loves beauty also. And those two are intertwined. It's beautiful as mercy. Jesus Christ is all about mercy. His gospel is a gospel of mercy. I mean, it seems merciful to me. All I have to do is believe in you. All I have to do is trust in you. It's still not with such a bunch of faithless people to work with, it's not such an easy thing. But with God's help, we can do it. Thank God. Thank God I don't have to wait for flesh and blood to reveal it to me. I might never have found the Lord. So a woman of grace in that inward beauty, more than the outward beauty, but, there's also an outward aspect of beauty. One, that, not of so much perfection, but of someone who is diligent and active and not slothful and indulgent. A woman should have. I always love to appear with my wife in public because she looks like someone who is keeping herself. And that's good. And she's graceful also in her movements, and it's because of that. My wife doesn't have to waddle because of having gained a lot of weight, and I know how terrible that can be for people. And I hate to say it, but I say it in love, in the sense of like, yes, it's good to and it's good because you'd feel so much better. That's why I always try to. So I'm always in a battle to keep from becoming actually obese. I've lost some weight recently, and it's like, that's cool. But that's the thing. I'm always trying to keep it down, not go into that territory. I want, because, but it's, it is the inner beauty is the most important thing, but it doesn't have to be the outward adornment of all the expensive things. I always tell my wife to, she works around the home and her hands, and stuff, and her clothes get dirty. And when we go out, I do and actually I demand her to put on something clean. It's like, though she cares not for it, right? But it's like, it's for me. Because it's like, because she's my wife. She's my ornament in a certain sense, It's not such a terrible thing. A good wife is a wonderful ornament about the life of a man. It's the proverb of Paul Stringini. There might be something like that down here somewhere. I'm sure it says something like that. A gracious woman is an ornament to her husband's honor, also. Yes, a woman who is gracious in both spirit and in, and again, gracious outwardly. I don't mean only like physical grace, but also being hospitable. A lot of these things, kindness, lack in one area or the other, being physically lacking. Some women do not have beautiful faces, that stereotypically beautiful, right? Whatever. But all of the things, I told a friend of mine, he was worried, he wanted to find somebody, and he was distressed about a lot of things in his life, and he didn't know how to talk to girls, and he was also worried about his weight. I'm like, well, I can't tell you how to talk to a girl, how to be confident, but I can tell you one thing, that if you can control your physical body if you really want to. You can exert the willpower to do that if it means enough to you. And that will help all the other stuff, because you'll never worry about that. That's one thing you won't have a source of lack of confidence. But and it is one of the actually easier things to correct over like a sour spirit or something like that. It's actually some ways, but everyone has different challenges, and it's a different level for different people. For some people I know, they easily keep weight off. I used to be like that, but I know what a struggle it can be. I was almost 300 pounds once. When I saw my getting to it's like about 293. I remember I was like, I'm getting too big. This is years ago. So the hospitality, the kindness, the inward beauty has an outward manifestation, and a gracious and humble spirit can make up for a lot of outward deficiencies. I do believe that. If because it's so much more valuable, it's so much nicer. And really the best thing about a relationship is not, it is really having someone who you can feel truly close with and trust. It's much more important than almost anything else. And you have to have a woman that's gracious to, a man also ought to be gracious. But there's also strong men retain riches. Not a lie. And while I would say for myself, sometimes I feel I've had over my lifetime I felt somewhat deficient because I've not been a powerful earner. But I mean, as I've said on other occasions to people, I made sacrifices so I could spend more time with my family because I valued that greater. And of that, because I sowed my time and all my value and my strength and my youth into my children instead of into my career or whatever, which I can still go about doing because it's like most of the things I want to do don't require like me to go to somebody and get them a job or something. Even though I have not been able to produce like I would have and have, physical riches, it wasn't like I was slothful and didn't invest myself in other things. And so now as they become young men, I feel very wealthy indeed. Not because of like any actual physical wealth I've gained from it. I'm not like I said, I still live month to month and not quite most of the time. No foreclosure notices or anything, but like it's like keeping up with the bills. I am keeping up with the bills, okay, for the most part. It's just I don't know. There's a lot more bills than there used to be, and whatever, and only a little more money. And because the price of food is really murderous, is it not? That's the thing. It's like some of that stuff is just absolutely painful. I'm definitely spending a lot more on that, and that's the main thing. But the Lord has provided, so I got no complaints. I'm not here to complain. But what I'm saying is, okay, yeah, I haven't had my earthly riches, but but the stuff that I have laid up in heaven, like Jesus talked about, laying not up for yourself. This is ultimate wisdom. If you fear God, you're laying up treasure not on earth, but in heaven. And a truly strong man is going to lay up truly persistent, eternal, everlasting riches. So, I'll flex for you in God's kingdom, and we'll see where we stand, those of you who think you have riches, as far as, like I said, I'll see how much you still have in your coffers when we're on the other side of Christ's return. We'll see where true strength lies, whatever. It's like, oh, strong men retain riches. That's true. No lie. Ain't no lie about that. It's true in that carnal sense, right? Oh, I got my sword and I got my tank and I got my shield and I'm going to retain my money. I'm going to build a beggar barn. Right? Because it's true. Weak men, I'll tell you what, I've never lost riches. I never had riches to lose. As far as like I didn't inherit some great fortune or anything like that. I came from a middle-class family. My dad couldn't even afford to put me through college. I was going to have to take out student loans, so I dropped out and went into business with him. And it wasn't in some great big business. He was only able to barely support his family over the years. And then I was barely able to support my family over the years. We were never, I consider us rich by the world's standards and by time and all that. And I had a good life. It was rich in all the ways that were important to me, at least in my adult life. My youth was a lot of misspent, a lot of waste of my youth. My youth was a grand lesson of how not to spend your youth. I think that's probably why my kids had such good youths and they have good relationship with me, because I looked at how those things went sour for me, and I was particularly forward that I should not perpetuate that on my children. Which is, we do not want to do that. We don't want to perpetuate, I want to, the things in my life that the moth and the rust that then tends to corrupt things, that tends to destroy a house, so to speak. The bitterness, the resentment, the things that can, provoke not your children to anger. In any way. But there were issues because we were adults and there were still things, there were problems in our relationship as adults. I'm like, this can't be like this. It's like, And because I try not to provoke my children. They do respect me. But also I respect them. Because they become adults. It's like they're men too. And by giving you, with what measure you meet, you receive. You have to be gracious to people if you're going to expect them to be gracious to you. You got to be kind to people if you want to be kind. You got to honor them if you expect to honor in return. But they have to be worthy of it also. Empty honor is not worth anything. The praise of flattering lips is not that's one thing. I'm no flatterer of my children. I do not flatter. I've always demanded, but with a kind, kind. Maybe not particularly soft, but kind. Strong men retain riches. You keep your family together, you're a rich man. If you save your marriage, you're a rich man. If your children still love you after you've done raising them, if they don't despise you, if they respect you, I don't even care. Love is one thing. As long as if they love me in that sense that they were willing to choose to love me, in the sense of like to look out for good for me as opposed to just who gives a crap about dad, that's good enough. Like meaning I've told my kids I'm not really good at the affection thing, but I try to be good at I try to love you by demonstrating, by doing for you the best I can, and by being the best father I can, and by directing you in the direction I think is best for you. Without taking control of your life either, without telling you what to do. As far as I've never tried to tell them, what's best for them. I'm only referring to actually morally. I refer not to their career choices, though I advise them on how to think about these things, because I was not properly appraised of these things. I think that, like I said, the people thought I was smart, so I would automatically do certain tier of things. No one ever considered, like, is this person going to actually be a proper fit for that kind of work for their life? Or is that kind of academic path going to, how is this academic? There's no actual analysis of how, I think one or two of my high school teachers could have straightened out everything and told my parents, just don't send them to college, not right now. And not that, anyways, it is strength to retain your riches, but you got to remember what are the true riches. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled into spending your life guarding a hoard of fool's gold, and all gold is fool's gold. I tell you, the only gold that matters is the spiritual version, the kind that is the works of God, wrought in God through Christ, through his power, and with the aid of the Holy Ghost. Those works done in God's will and to his glory, humbly and in the most absolute, the best way, with the best we could do, the gold. That's the most valuable thing. I want to bring the Lord some gold. I want gold on his altar. I want some gold there, on God's altar. See, I want works of gold. I'll have some works of silver. I don't know, gold, silver, bronze, wood, hay, stubble. Okay. I know I got stubble too. I know there's stubble. Yeah, sure. There's a lot of old stuff. I go back. It works of stuff. Let it be burned. Sorry, Lord. I repent of those. I repented of those teachings. And that's the thing. That's already gone before me to judgment. When you acknowledge your sin, especially something you think you were doing for God, it's a big mistake. You're like, oh yeah, the Jews are Kenites. That's what the truth is. Lord, sorry, that's wrong. I stopped teaching that, and I made up for it kind of sevenfold, because I did repay. I spent more time and effort debunking the teachings of Arnold Murray than I ever did spreading them. Because that's the level of guilt I felt. I think that's appropriate. You ought to make amends when you do wrong. So I paid for it. I confessed it. I'm not gonna see that. It's already been burned up. I set it on fire myself. I did. I almost burned the books themselves, Arnold Murray's books, if I didn't think there was some use in them. I wish I had, rather than give them to the guy I gave it to him, but he's gone now. So he's gone into judgment. He'll be all right. Just had goofy ideas. But he knew the Lord, which is enough. A gracious woman retaineth honor, and strong men retain riches. The merciful man doeth good to his own soul. But this cruel troubleth his own flesh. I'm going to say that that's kind of connected to what we've been saying. By being merciful, the gracious woman, the merciful man, she retains honor. People respect her. When you are merciful, you do good to your own soul. Notice it's like, again, like the things later on in this chapter, which I thought we'd get to today, but I guess we're going to buy tomorrow. It's been a little slow, but I don't know. I enjoy mulling these things over and talking about them. But as we go through these, or whatever, there's so many more I want to talk about. They are all inconnected. There's like a web of wisdom. Like I said, you could change the order and it would still all be good. And there may be a particular order in mind, and sometimes it's helpful, like I said, with the talebearer, coming after that where you hold your peace. And some of them do, they're almost like like there's one verse and then the next verse says something that's sort of interconnected. But at some point there is kind of a break that doesn't, obviously they have chapters and stuff. It's not. But anyways, but the merciful man doeth good to his own soul, but he that is cruel, mercy and cruelty, troubleth his own flesh. I like the way you look at the wisdom of Solomon. Solomon was a son of David, and there's so much like something sort of messianic about his writings, I always feel. Just like when it talked about the branch, like he that is righteous shall grow like the branch. All this hope, because wisdom understands that from the beginning, the sin of man is what brings about our death. It's the path of death. And if only men could be righteous, they would live forever. They could live forever and eat of the tree of life. Like the way to the garden would be open if man would just do the right thing. But man can't do it. Never could. Over centuries and centuries of men, either their conscience or whatever, they just continually violate the right way. Even the right way they know in their mind. Even in their own corrupted view of reality, men still go astray. All right, so, and again, trouble with his own flesh, again, is another way of saying yourself, like your soul and your flesh. Now, they're obviously obvious, they're not the same idea. When you talk about the flesh, you mean your flesh body. But also, you're troubling your flesh. The cruel man, he fears most for his own flesh, and he's cruel to others. Maybe they seem to slight him. There's all kinds of reasons people are cruel. I've had the impulse to cruelty at times, the impulse to be cruel. I'm sure we've all, if we think about it, that moment when you want to really step on someone, say something exceedingly mean, make a comment that may be true and cutting, but that you've kept to yourself, not because they don't need to hear it. No, not because, because they don't need to hear it. Because it would be unkind to say so. It's not something that needs to be brought to light. Cruelty, and and why is this? Why is he the cruel, troubling his own flesh? We could say, what goes around comes around and stuff like that. That's sometimes true, but sometimes it's not true, and they go to their graves. But the only way it can ultimately be true is if God does judge, and if there is the potential for life everlasting after death. And without that potential, this is nonsense. The cruel often get away with it and live to ripe old ages and die. Think about the leaders of North Korea. Some of them, I remember the last guy, if he lived particularly long, he wasn't that old. But the wicked do, they have their excesses and they die. If you live an opulent lifestyle, just eating whatever you want, and not consider, no one loves you enough to help you and tell you to moderate. I have this lovely wife that helps me eat the right things and cares for my body. Because the cruel, in their cruelty, how does that trouble their flesh? Well, not directly, but of course indirectly, because God hates the cruel. Just like he hates those that kill. It's part of the fear of the Lord. You fear God. Why am I not a cruel SOB? Why do I back off from that? Well, one, maybe I love the person. I don't want to hurt them. But let's say I don't love them. Why should I not be cruel? Because God despises that cruelty. That I don't have the right to judge like that. There are moments, like I said, you walk in on some horrible situation and you immediately want to be the avenging spirit. I don't know. Because I don't know how I can't, like, I remember, I think it was Michael Dukakis. Someone asked, it's like, what if you walked in and found someone raping your wife? And he gave some like lame answer. I'm like that guy would be dead in less than a minute. This is the true what I would say. Because I don't know. I'm pretty sure I would just lose. I would not. I would probably not think at all. I would just act. I'm pretty sure. I might go stop short of killing them. I probably would. I think. I wouldn't stop. I would want to hurt them bad. Maybe break a bone or two. I'm just telling them, like, these are the desires. These are the things I would have to stop myself from doing. From like breaking their fingers backwards and stuff. I know what it takes to snap bones. Anyways, it's a dark ending to the study, but the cruel troubles his own flesh. Careful with your cruelties, even your petty ones. Men shall give account of every idle word. I have that thought, like, I should not be cruel. How can I do this to this person? Or someone who loves you. And even if people who don't. Christ has called us to love our enemies. Now, sometimes that involves what I would call the minor cruelty of doing good to them, and then that heaps coals of fire on their head because they are humiliated and whatever. They're feeling all these negative emotions because someone they despise is doing something nice to them. But that's okay. You can be cruel like that. That's a cruelty the Lord accepts. I mean? Like in the petty cruelty, the small, I don't mean in the sense of, because it is, don't be petty about it, okay? Don't be small about it. Be big about it, but you can be cruel like that. Like pour heap coals of fire upon his heads. When your enemy's hungry, feed him. When he's thirsty, give him drink. When he's naked, clothe him. And in doing so, you shall heap coals of fire upon his head. Again, if that's any comfort to you. But whether that's in comfort to you or not, that's what you should do because it's the right thing. But that, but it's not true cruelty because you're really helping. He's freezing, so you cover him. And if he doesn't like it, it's too bad. You know what I mean? How do you think the Israelite felt by being helped by the Samaritan? What do you think? No, not a Samaritan. What? No, wait, I won't. I don't want to be rescued by a Samaritan. Can we wait for another priest to come along? Can we wait for another Levite? No, he didn't say, don't help me. I'm a Jew. I don't want help from a filthy Gentile. No. He just laid there and took the help like any sensible person would. And afterwards, it doesn't say, but he should have showed gratitude. Anyways, be kind. Be merciful. It is the better default position. But always use wisdom and understanding, like from the first verse we talked about. I know we're done. But despising your neighbor. It's important to understand that you do not don't get confused and think that making them like you is the same thing as you loving them. Staying in their good graces by never saying anything that upsets them when it's needful, if it's needful. Again, some things may not be needful. Don't be an intruder into other people's affairs. You don't want to be a busybody. That's another thing. It's like, busybodies looking for little things to pick on. The Lord is going to make us account for every idle word, but we don't need brothers for that, okay? You know what I mean? To police every single little mistake you make. That's not needed. Be merciful. Restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, because you never know when you might be overtaken in a fault. Thanks for joining me today. We look forward to being back again tomorrow. Until then, remember the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.
Oh, if thou wouldest rend the heavens, that thou wouldest come down, that the mountains might flow down, at thy presence as when melting fire burneth, the fire causeth the waters to boil, to make thy name known to thine adversaries, that the nations may tremble at thy presence when thou didst terrible things which we look not for.